In a shocking turn of events, Donovan Mitchell is now a member of the Cavaliers. For the longest, the Knicks had been ruled the favorite for a Donovan Mitchell trade. It appeared that a Donovan Mitchell trade to the Knicks was going to happen as soon as before the start of next season, but the Cavaliers have come around and they've won the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes. So why did the Knicks miss out on a Donovan Mitchell trade, and where do they go from here? Let's talk about it. But before we continue, I'm trying to hit 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you enjoy the content, please drop a like on the video and hit that subscribe button. So according to Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report, the Knicks basically got outbid by the Cavaliers. The main thing that Danny Ainge has been trying to get with this Donovan Mitchell trade is unprotected picks, and the Cavaliers were simply willing to give more unprotected picks than the Knicks were. With the Knicks' last trade offer to the Utah Jazz, they offered them 5 draft picks, but only 2 of them being unprotected. The Cavaliers offered 3 unprotected first-round picks along with the other assets. So they outbid the Knicks, and that's why Danny Ainge ended up agreeing to this trade with the Cavaliers and rejecting the trade from the Knicks. I think the reason why Leon Rose was uncomfortable giving up 3 unprotected first-round picks is because he wanted to leave draft capital for another move down the line, because he knew that after acquiring Donovan Mitchell, there's going to be another trade or 2 needed to turn the Knicks from a good team to a playoff team. See, from the Knicks front office viewpoint, they believed that Donovan Mitchell was good enough to make them a playoff team. In fact, Bleacher Report reported that the Knicks believed that Donovan Mitchell would give them another 10 wins, which that would have given them 47 wins, put them in the playoffs. But there was going to be another move, probably another move for a second star to actually make them legit contenders. And they felt that if we give up too many unprotected first round picks, we're not going to have the draft capital needed to trade for another star. And trading for another star is going to be needed in order for us to go from 6th seed to go from contender. So they felt that they couldn't give up too many picks. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to have a second move down the line in order to turn the Knicks from a solid team to a legit championship contender. The Cavaliers were in better position to give up those unprotected first-round picks than the Knicks were. And this is largely because the Cavaliers have done a better job at team building than the Knicks over the years. The Cavs are a team that was a winning team last season, that was in the play-in tournament, that has better young talent. If you look at the trade package that they gave up along with those picks, they gave up some solid young players, Ochai Agbaji and Lauri Markkanen, but this is a team that already has a very solid young core, and now with Donovan Mitchell along with Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, this is now a team that we could see being a contender a few years from now. But you can't say the same for the Knicks. Unfortunately, the Knicks haven't done a great job of building a winning team now, so Leon Rose didn't feel as comfortable giving up those 3 unprotected picks, and this is largely due to the sins of past regimes. Selecting Frank Ntilikina and passing up on Donovan Mitchell, selecting Kevin Knox and passing up on some really good players like Mikal Bridges, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Had the Knicks drafted well and drafted some high-end talent with those lottery picks in the past, they would have been in better position to make a big trade. But because the Knicks have not team built over the past few years, they weren't really in position to give up all those assets for Donovan Mitchell and move their team forward. And Leon Rose also is not blameless. I think that he's done mostly a solid job, but picking up Kemba Walker and picking up Evan Fournier last offseason, that has been a dud. Selecting Obi Toppin over Tyrese Halliburton, that was a misfire. So because the Knicks over the past haven't done a good job of team building, they weren't in a great position for a Donovan Mitchell trade. So since the Knicks don't have Donovan Mitchell on the team next season, where exactly do they go from here? The most important thing for the Knicks to focus on next season is developing their young talent and becoming a winning team. I still believe that Jalen Brunson was a nice pickup in addition to the young core. He's still only 26 years old. It'll be nice if he can show that he can be the point guard of the future and that he can improve. They definitely need RJ Barrett to make a leap. They just extended him. He's proven that he's a good player, but he needs to make a huge leap and prove that he can be an all-star caliber player. Julius Randle, they need a bounce back season from him. I don't expect that he'll ever be able to repeat what he did when he was second All-NBA team, but if he could come close to those shooting percentages, that was good. And some of these other young pieces like Cam Reddish, like Quentin Grimes, like Emmanuel Quickly also need to improve. And best case scenario for the Knicks next season is probably that they slide into the playoffs as a low playoff seed, or they make the play-in tournament and they're able to battle out for the playoffs. But this Donovan Mitchell trade to the Cavaliers is definitely going to hurt their chances of making the playoffs, because now an Eastern Conference that was already incredibly deep as we've seen over the past 10 plus years, has now gotten even deeper. In the East, there's a handful of teams that have a very good case to be in the finals next year. Obviously, you got the Celtics, who was in the finals last year, but then you've also got the Bucks, you've got the Heat, you got the Brooklyn Nets, and you got the 76ers. So those 5 teams are very much stacked with talent and have a very good case to be a finals threat. But then after those 5 teams, there's also some very good teams that made the playoffs last year that improved over the offseason. We talked about the Cavaliers, who's stacked with young talent after the Donovan Mitchell pickup. But you look at a team like the Atlanta Hawks, who was the 8th seed last year. Trae Young is great. They picked up DeJounte Murray, who's an all-star. So I would expect that the Hawks are going to get better. Then you also got to look at the Chicago Bulls with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic. I would expect them to be in the playoffs. And now you've got 8 teams that I would rank ahead of the Knicks. So best case scenario for the Knicks is that they're probably 9-10 seed play-in tournament, and maybe they might be able to sneak into the 7th or 8th seed. So with this Donovan Mitchell trade to the Cavaliers, it's going to be very difficult for the Knicks to get wins next year, and it's going to be very difficult for them to make the playoffs. A lot of things are going to have to go well next year. Not only is Jalen Brunson going to have to show that what he did in the playoffs wasn't a fluke, but RJ is going to have to make a leap to at least all-star consideration. And Julius Randle is really going to have a bounce back year. So next season is going to be very tough for the Knicks. So overall, the main thing that the Knicks need to do going forward is they need to continue to develop their young talent, and they need to establish a winning culture. And even though it's unfortunate that Donovan Mitchell is not going to end up on the Knicks, if they stay patient and if they continue staying the course, there will eventually be another star that will demand the trade. Stars become disgruntled all the time and want out year after year. Just to name a couple of names, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in OKC, maybe eventually he'll get tired of the taking and losing and maybe he'll want out. Or you could look at somebody like Brandon Ingram in New Orleans. Maybe Zion never stays healthy and maybe he'll eventually want out. That's just a couple of suggestions. But the most important thing that the Knicks need to do is to develop a winning culture like the Cavaliers did. Because if they do that, they'll be in better position to land a star that can eventually make them a contender. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. What do you think of the Donovan Mitchell to the Cavaliers news? What do you think that the Knicks need to do from here? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it and hit that subscribe button. And click this video to see 4 Knicks players that could eventually break out next season.